Hello, welcome. Welcome to the third week of Funeral Archaeology course. So, again, thank you all for your kindness, for your comments. For the new subscribers, thank you so much. A little recap about the course is that it's a free course, 6 weeks long. We'll talk about funerary archaeology. For any information about the enrollment, you can click down on the description box of this video, and you can find everything down there. In the past lessons, we talk about the way certain group of animals deal with loss and death, such as elephants and, of course, apes. And all of this led to today's lessons. So, hello everybody. Hello. Ciao Claudia. Hello Alejandra. Hi. Hi Alexander. Nice to meet you. Nice to have you all here today. Let me know if you see and hear me well. I'm waiting for other people to come. So today's lessons is about rights and human behavior towards them. So, again, thank you all for your kindness and your support. It's so much appreciated. And if you want to enroll into this free course, please ask the guys to Save Cultural Heritage Group, because they are in charge of doing it. So thank you. So, okay, audio and video is okay. Thank you so much. Shall we begin? Okay. Let me see. This one, it's better. Okay. So, why this title? The dead didn't bury themselves. It's actually a quote from Parker Pearson, and you will see why during the course of this lesson. To reconstruct human behavior, we of course based our research into archaeological evidences of funerary practices, such as burial records. What we found during excavation, we need to understand how that was created. And it could be everything, starting from, I don't know, the grave, which could be a pit down in the ground, or a monument, or a tumulus, or a pyramid even, whatever. Of course, the funerary engraved goods and the body itself. But in doing so, Many archaeologists, what can I say? They did not remember that Funerary Records is created by of course, the people who are still alive, not by the dead. And they do so while in the process of grieving and loss. So there is an intentional action between the creation of the burial records and the treatment of the deceased. The dead, of course, do not bury themselves. The deceased functions as an artifact, just as the same as, pottery or any other grave goods. In the burial rite, which is enacted by others, whose way of thinking, their personas, their life could be very different from the one who is dead. The funerary record is not the deceased's idea of himself or herself, but rather it's the result of a complex mix of identity and status, conceived by his or her culture, relatives, families, and loved ones. Funerary archaeology came into help into the study of course, funerary practice. Oh, I see there is a typo in my presentation. I'll correct it later when I put the presentation in the page in Google Classroom dedicated to this lesson. Everyone's life goes through different transformations, from childhood into puberty and then into adulthood. Death is only the final step of the whole process. So death comes with the funeral and the burial practice. The grave, found out during archaeological campaign, brings many information about the living people from a forgotten time. Funerary archaeology is the branch of archaeology which aims to understand past society through the treatment of the dead. As I said yesterday in the second lesson, animals, probably even our ancestors, apes, didn't have the knowledge, the awareness that death is universal. Eventually, it will come for them too. This awareness is specific to man, to our kind. Past society had to respond to death, and they did so in an active way. It's not passive. Some researchers and, cultural anthropologists in the past have to say that maybe they can act even in a passive way, such as when we are not in front of a burial, when we are not in front of a body is missing, there is a monument, but there is nothing inside of it. But anyways, the most common theory is that past society and our kind, humankind in general, responded to death in an active way, such as handling, manipulating, and with a disposition of corpses. Of course, the practice of burial and the way we buried our dead underwent different changes during time and space. And those changes are global and or on a local level through communities. What is ritual? We have talked a lot during these lessons about ritual, but ritual and rite, which is almost the same. And there are many different ways to define ritual. Ritual, to begin with, exists in every aspect of life. It reflects and shapes reality, and there are plenty of ways to define it. The first of all is a structure, an enduring set of interaction among many features. Then, it can be viewed as a customary practice where in the formula of behavior is prescribed and explicit even through meanings may be ambiguous, mysterious, or implicit. And that's the definition by Parker Pearson. Bradley defined ritual as the symbolic expression of beliefs performed in order to reaffirm those beliefs, which is a little bit of tricky, but let's say that as a group, society create not only major ceremonies, but also smaller scale daily events. And that smaller scale daily events became habitus, which is a socially learned way of acting and being that is acquired during daily life. These small-scale events left behind everyday sort of artifact, such as pottery, houses, and others, that are a large part of what is studied by archaeologists, and that is the definition of Chapman. Ritual, for Parker Pearson, does not include only the spiritual, but they have the power to justify or undermine the entire social order. Ritual is also an act of politics, as a political nature, and that is emphasized by the power plays of participant, as they attempt to delineate and renegotiate the hegemonic order. Into that definition lays also funerals. Funerals are viewed as political events, as the death of a social being creates an opportunity for the community, for the others, to reevaluate their own position. I know it's a lot of thought, a lot of subject, a lot of words, but bear with me, stay with me. We are only started because the anthropology of ritual is a long process, and I try to be as much, easy as I can to summarize the most, but of course there are almost 2 centuries of studies and theories about ritual, so it's a lot. As we gonna say and gonna see, anthropologists, and by anthropologists, for that matter, I mean cultural anthropologists, because I think that by definition, we could all agree that is referenced to only cultural anthropologists. The early of them, at the very beginning, they did not give ritual the attention that they gave to other aspects of life. Henry Morgan recorded details of rituals as he witnessed it. But of course, as I said before, he did not give so much attention. The issue for this is that he find the matter too complex, because rituals deals with so much that is also emotional, and emotions are uncertain. We cannot talk about emotion through rationality. They are the exact opposite of rationality, and so we cannot fully rationalize emotion. And Henry Morgan said that all primitive religions are grotesque and to some extent unintelligible. Of course, this is a very old theory, as you can see, from the 1877. And Levi-Strauss, too, devoted most of his attention to matters other than ritual, but he discussed ritual as an instigator of feeling and desire. So we see that for the very first anthropologist, ritual was linked to emotion. For others, even at the same time, as you can see, for example, Emile Durkheim, ritual became a center of their work, the focus of their work. Turner, during his field work among the Nemderebu, I don't know how to pronounce it, of Zambia, came to realize that without understanding their rituals, he could not fully understand much. Darkheim was a structural functionalist who believed in the superorganic, or a quality that is independent of the individual members of society. Structural functionalists see each part of a society as both contributing to it and deriving benefit from the whole, much like separate parts of an organism. For Durkheim, rituals are which bound individuals in a society together, strengthening the social structure as it symbolically portrayed that society structure. He believed that the major dichotomy in the universe was the sacred versus the profane. All religions were true, as they all answered, though in different ways, to the given condition of human existence. Durkheim, so, divided religion into belief and ritual. Beliefs are the thought and opinion one holds. Ritual is the action one takes according to those beliefs. Ritual has a different object, the sacred. Ritual consists of prescribed acts that allow the profane, humans, to interact with the sacred. He believed that the society had godlike qualities that both derived from and created ritual. So during religious situation, people experience a high level of emotion. They might feel a divine presence. Since ritual was the way society explained themselves, to say so, this divine presence were created by and projection of the society itself. The sacred was, in essence, created by the profane. Robertson Smith and Fraser, at the end of the 19th century, had another opinion. They thought that the center of all is magic, and the ritual associated with magic, and magic was more primitive than religion. And on the other hand, there were the ritual associated with religion. Religion deals with ethics and deities. Magic deals with other sorts of conduct. Fraser and Smith considered ritual associated to religion to be worthy of study, and that associated with magic was relegated to superstition and dismissed. Geoffrey Wilson, in the 1930s, recognized the importance of examining ritual, which he believed can reveal deep truth about the values of society. Men express in ritual what moves them the most. a most recent approach is the one of Roy Rappaport, who considers ritual to be the social act basic to humanity. In all of this, a central place for our study, for funerary archaeology, is the one led by the Rites of Passage. The Rites of Passage are theorized by Arnold Vargenep at the beginning of the last century. And what is a rite of passage? Is an intermediate stage between the incompatible worlds of the sacred and the profane. So Van Gennep theorized a rite which can be divided into three parts. And those specific rites came in when we start from a transition period from another one in whatever culture, or when the identity of an individual in a group changes and requires reorganization of the structure. The most common for all different communities and cultures, present and past, are the birth, the coming of age, marriage, and death. Of course, the rite of passage, the three parts can change from culture to culture, but these are the staples that are common to most, if not all, different communities around the globe. The rite of passage is divided into three stages: separation, when the person separates from the previous identity and society; the transition or liminal is when they have no specific persona and are in a between stages; and reincorporation, when the individual rejoins the society but with a new identity. So some example of this, of the three-part rituals. Let's say, let's think about our service. The birth, the adolescence, puberty, and then death. No, to be more specific is the birth, the childhood, the puberty, adolescence, the adulthood, and then death. So we all have experienced it during our lives, that specific time when we don't feel like we are a child, but we cannot identify ourselves with adults too, because we are still young. That specific phase is the one of transition, the liminal one, the second phase, and it's the one of puberty. Let's think about female women. When the first menstruation, they change their status to the one of a child to the other of a grown woman, a grown woman. Again, applying this to death, there is a phase of a people, a person, in which the person is living, and then at the end, the person is dead. Certain culture put the second phase between the two, between life and death. Other culture focus on the end, so there is life, death, and of course death is seen by them as a second phase, as a liminal one, the transitional, and then the new phase as the dead persona, which became something new. For Van Gennep, these rites of passage aimed at defining and maintaining groups. The purpose of this ritual isn't always clear, and other people, such as Radcliffe Brown, said that the rites of passage strengthened community during times when they had been stressed. Darkheim feel a little bit different, but not too much. The rites of passage are an expression of group, a solidarity of group, and then are used to control the emotion of those affected. The rites of passage are meant to be a framework for discussing the various parts of this transitional period, rather than a way to understand universal in human behavior. When we are approaching an archaeological site, we can easily see that funerary record and death is the only rite of passage that leaves archaeological traces, allowing us to get a glimpse of the behavior, ideology, and emotional aspect of past culture. So, it's a lot, I know. A lot of different subjects, a lot of words too. Don't worry, I'll put all of the information and further readings into the page of the course. I want to add that all of this is important. I'm not I was not diving into this subject to read so much with you, but instead because we lost a lot of past society. When we are recording data on an archaeological site, we didn't know the meaning behind certain action, or the thought also, or the beliefs. We only have artifacts and a way in which funerary records can be help for us, and a help for us is to try to fill up the void. I will say that that is so because many people find interesting death and rituals and past custom and habits towards death. It's because we can get a glimpse of the life of people back then. So, if you have any question, please ask. Tell me which part of this dissertation you find interesting. Sorry for my bad English, I know. So as you can see, here, these are my linked to my social media, again, my email address. Don't worry and feel free to ask whatever comes to your mind. If you are not enrolled into the course, please do so, because as I said during this lesson, in the page Google Classroom dedicated to this course. There are other information and other readings and extras about the lessons. So please do so. If let me check. Let me check. Oh, there are still some people left. Glad that I didn't bore you to death. So, I'm checking. I see that yesterday some people commented directly on the page of the course, on Classroom. Some comments about the past lessons. Thank you all. Thank you all for the nice word. I see there are plenty of you. 53. Wow. Thank you. Awesome question. Thank you, Alexandra. No. Religion, I will put it slightly. Religion did not came after magic. To some cultural anthropologists, they put magic an explanation at the same time as an explanation of magic. No, they are two separate parts of society. To fully answer your question, some cultural anthropologists saw from one end there is magic, on the other hand there is religion, and they co-live together. But some cultural anthropologists decided, don't know why, it's their way of thinking and they're entitled to do so, that magic has more power towards religion, while others believe the opposite, such as religion is much more important than magic. I put you on. You are referring to the work of Darkheim. He was the one that put all religion on the same level. And he said that all religions were true because they all answered the same. Religion came with thought and action, which are enabled into beliefs and ritual. And while others, as Fraser, believed that magic was more primitive than religion. But with primitive, he did not believe that came first. He did believe that primitive means something which is of a lesser value, of a lesser scale in evolution, if we could say so. Let's remember the time in which Fraser lived a while back, and during that age, it was popular thinking that if society and people did not perform a certain aspect of what the current of anthropologists of that area believes are important, means they are regressed, they are not put on the same level. And so it's primitive for that matter. Primitive, yes, for a lesser value. So they came at the same time, but it chose to not focus its work on magic for that reason. I put the work of Fraser because it was important into the study, into the history of cultural anthropology, but also because looking at society of its time, to us now are still past society, which he found into, I don't know, the last remote part of the globe, which were not as civilized as the one in which he lived. He thought, as many other first cultural anthropologists, that they can reconstruct the life and way of thinking of past society by looking at that population, let's say, I don't know, natives or some tribes in Africa, or into New Zealand and into the surrounding isles. So there is still residue of colonialism and evolutionism to that thought. So I thought it was nice and it was due to me to not skip this part, because even if nowadays those theories aren't good, it's still a part of cultural anthropology history. That explain, Alejandra, or if I haven't killed you with all this boring stuff. I know I found it, I don't know if it's only me, I found it quite boring, but they are a necessity for the matter. And yeah, if there aren't. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. I'm so glad. Thank you, Alexander. Oh, let's see if I can do this. I can show you a comment. Okay, so I show the one of Alejandra. Okay. Thank you, you're very kind. What a cool different variation of name. Paul Petit, Evolutionary Thanatology, opened my mind. I didn't know his work. Thank you. Thank you. It's always, I'm always glad to be inspiring, because actually I didn't know his work too up until some weeks ago. I randomly stumbled upon one of his work while I was researching for my other works not related to this course, and so I was stunned too. Let's say it's a new work, and as you can see from the dates in my presentation, all of the staple in the subject of funerary archaeology, apart from Jude and many other Nils Stutz, but I will say that 80% of the matter was based on very, very old works. So it's always nice to find a new researcher and new people who are studying and approaching the matter from a different point of view. Thank you. So I was looking at the classroom and it's arrived another comment. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Hamed, for your kind word. Thank you. So I'm looking at YouTube because I'm from StreamYard. Maybe there are some more. Oh, okay, so. Okay. Oh, thank you all for the views. I didn't expect it so much. I know it's been a long time since I started, so again, I'll share with you my contact link, my email address. And see you all next week. If you prefer, another thing, let me know here in the comment or in Google Classroom if you prefer shorter video, such as the second lesson, or a bit longer before before next week, of course. Next week is focused on Anthropology, and so I'm looking forward to it because it's something that I really like, and I think it could be very interesting for you too. So again, have a nice time, have a nice evening, and thank you all again for your patience, for your support, and for your kind word. See you next time. Bye bye.